The next morning, Lucas woke to the soft glow of sunlight streaming through his cabin window. The forest was quiet yet full of life, with birds singing and leaves rustling in a gentle breeze. He took a deep breath, feeling grateful for the calm and peace surrounding him. After breakfast, he decided to spend the day exploring a trail he had never ventured down before. The path was narrow, winding between tall trees and bushes, with the occasional ray of sunlight lighting the way. Lucas enjoyed walking in the forest, observing the small details, the patterns of leaves, the color of the mushrooms along the trail, and the footprints of animals in the soil. Each step made him feel connected to nature in a way he had never experienced before. He walked carefully, respecting the delicate balance of the forest, and occasionally paused to take notes in his little notebook. While he was deep in the woods, he heard a faint rustling behind him. At first he thought it might be a squirrel or a small deer, but then he noticed a figure moving through the trees. Lucas's curiosity was piqued. He slowed his pace and watched quietly. The figure was a man carrying a backpack and looking around as if he was searching for something. Lucas stepped forward and called out politely, "Hello, can I help you?" The man turned quickly, surprised to see someone else in the forest. "Oh, I didn't mean to startle you. I'm looking for a friend who camped here last night," the man said. Lucas nodded slowly. "This is private property. I live in the cabin nearby. Are you sure you're in the right place?" The man looked slightly embarrassed. "I think I might be lost. My friend went ahead and I got separated. I didn't realize anyone lived here." Lucas studied the man carefully. He seemed honest and not dangerous. "All right," Lucas said calmly. "I can help you find your friend, but please follow me. We should stick to the main trail." As they walked together, Lucas kept an eye on the surroundings. The forest was beautiful, but could be tricky for someone unfamiliar with the paths. The man introduced himself as Thomas, explaining that he and a friend had been hiking nearby but had lost track of each other. Lucas listened politely, offering directions and advice about staying safe in the forest. Meanwhile, back at the cabin, Mrs. Harper noticed that Lucas had been gone for several hours. She felt a little worried, remembering the incidents of the previous days. Out of habit, she decided to take a short walk toward the stream to see if he had returned. As she walked, she noticed small footprints leading deeper into the woods. Curiosity and concern pushed her forward. Lucas and Thomas continued along the trail until they reached a small clearing. To Lucas's relief, they found Thomas's friend, sitting on a fallen log and looking slightly anxious. The two friends were reunited, shaking hands and expressing relief. Lucas smiled, feeling satisfied that everyone was safe. "Thank you," Thomas said earnestly. "I don't know what I would have done without your help." Lucas shrugged modestly. "It's no problem. The forest can be tricky. It's important to watch out for each other." After guiding them safely back toward the cabin area, Lucas returned to his home. He found Mrs. Harper waiting on the porch, looking slightly relieved but also curious about the day's events. "You seem to have had quite an adventure," she said, smiling gently. Lucas nodded. "It's part of living here. The forest has its surprises, but it also teaches patience and care." Mrs. Harper watched as Lucas put away his hiking gear and sat down on the porch with a cup of tea. The events of the day made her think about the forest differently. She realized that life here was not just about rules and monitoring. It was also about helping others, connecting with people, and enjoying the beauty of nature. As the afternoon sun began to set, Lucas heard a faint sound coming from the direction of the road. It was the familiar rumble of a car engine. To his surprise, it was the local authorities driving toward the cabin slowly. Officer Miller stepped out, smiling as he approached. "Lucas, we just wanted to check in after the reports from the past few days," he said. "Everything seems in order, but we thought it would be good to see for ourselves." Lucas welcomed him warmly, explaining the events of the past few days, the lost boy, the young girl, Thomas and his friend, and the quiet life he was building in the forest. Officer Miller listened attentively, nodding. "It seems like you're doing a good job keeping the area safe," the officer said. "And the neighbors seem to trust you now." Lucas smiled. "I try to be careful and respectful. The forest is beautiful and it deserves care." Mrs. Harper, standing nearby, felt a sense of pride. She had witnessed the events and realized that her earlier judgment had been hasty. Lucas was not a threat. He was someone who respected the forest and the community. As the evening approached, Lucas decided to prepare a small campfire outside the cabin. The cool night air made it perfect for sitting around a fire, sipping tea and watching the stars. Mrs. Harper joined him, carrying a blanket to sit on. The two of them talked about the events of the past days, the surprises of living near the forest, and the lessons they had learned. "You've really changed my perspective on living here," Mrs. Harper said softly. "I always thought new people could be trouble, but now I see that it's about trust and understanding." Lucas nodded. "Exactly. Sometimes we judge before we know the truth. But when we take the time to observe and understand, we can build connections and make the world a little better." The stars appeared one by one, twinkling brightly above the forest canopy. Lucas and Mrs. Harper sat quietly, enjoying the calm. The fire crackled softly, adding warmth and comfort to the peaceful night. The forest was alive, yet it felt safe, welcoming, and full of possibilities. Just as they were about to head inside, Lucas noticed a small movement near the edge of the clearing. A deer peeked through the trees, watching them quietly before disappearing into the shadows. Lucas smiled, feeling connected to the life around him. The forest was full of surprises, but it was also full of beauty and lessons. That night, Lucas went to bed feeling content. The day had been full of unexpected encounters, but each one had brought joy, understanding, or a chance to help others. Living in the forest was not always predictable, but it was rewarding in ways he had never imagined. Mrs. Harper, returning home, reflected on her day. She realized that rules were important, but so were trust, kindness, and patience. Lucas had shown her a new way to see the forest and the people who lived in it. She felt grateful for the experience and looked forward to seeing him again. As the night deepened, the forest seemed to embrace the cabin, the quiet stream, and the life within it. Lucas's little home had become more than a dream. It was now a place of learning, connection, and unexpected adventures, and as he drifted off to sleep, he felt ready for whatever surprises the forest might bring next. Lucas had always dreamed of having a place of his own, a small cabin hidden in the quiet woods where he could escape the busy life of the town. He loved the idea of waking up to the soft chirping of birds, breathing in the fresh air, and watching the sunlight filter through the tall trees. For years he had saved every penny, working extra hours and staying focused on his goal. Finally, one bright morning, he signed the papers for a modest cabin on the outskirts of a small forest. It was not big or fancy, but it was perfect. Surrounded by tall pine trees and with a gentle stream flowing nearby, it seemed like a little piece of paradise. The cabin was made of light brown wood, with a small porch that curved around the front. Lucas imagined himself sitting there with a cup of coffee, watching the sunrise and reading his favorite books. Inside, the cabin was simple but cozy. A small living room had a soft couch and a wooden table. A tiny kitchen had enough space to cook simple meals, and the bedroom had a big window that opened to the forest. Lucas could already picture himself relaxing there, feeling completely at peace. The first weekend finally came. Lucas packed his car with essentials, blankets, a few books, food, and some clothes. He left town early in the morning so he could enjoy the entire day at the cabin. The road to his new place was narrow and surrounded by tall trees. Birds flew across the sky, and small animals moved quietly through the bushes. Lucas felt a wave of happiness as he drove further into the forest. He could not wait to see his cabin again, this time in person. When he arrived, the cabin looked even more beautiful than he had imagined. Sunlight danced on the wooden walls, and the gentle sound of the stream added a peaceful rhythm to the surroundings. Lucas parked his car, grabbed his bags, and unlocked the door. The smell of fresh wood filled the air, and he smiled. Everything was just as he had pictured. That evening, Lucas unpacked his things and prepared a simple dinner. He cooked some pasta and vegetables, enjoying the quiet around him. The forest seemed alive with sounds, the rustling of leaves, the distant call of birds, and the soft gurgle of the stream. Lucas felt free and happy. After dinner, he took a small lantern and stepped onto the porch looking at the stars. The sky was clear, and thousands of stars twinkled above him. It was a moment of calm he had dreamed about for years. Meanwhile, not far from the cabin, Mrs. Harper was busy in her own home. She lived a few houses down the road and was known in the town for being very strict about the rules. Mrs. Harper, who everyone quietly called HOA Karen, was always alert to what was happening in her neighborhood. She believed in order, rules, and discipline, and she kept a close eye on anyone who was new or different. That night, she noticed a light flickering from Lucas's cabin through her binoculars. She frowned and squinted at the window. Something felt off. "Who is that in the cabin?" she muttered to herself. "I don't remember seeing anyone new moving in." She felt uneasy. Her mind raced with possibilities, and before she could calm down, she picked up her phone. She knew exactly what she wanted to do. "I need to make sure this is safe," she whispered, dialing 911. She described a possible intruder in the woods, someone who seemed suspicious and did not belong there. Lucas, completely unaware of the attention he was attracting, had already prepared for bed. The night was calm in the forest. Lucas lay in his bed listening to the wind brushing through the trees. He felt comfortable and safe. The cabin, surrounded by nature, seemed like a small world just for him. He thought about the hard work it took to reach this moment, the long hours at his job and the patience it required to save enough money. Now that he was here, he felt a deep sense of satisfaction. The forest was quiet but not empty. He could hear the occasional hoot of an owl, the soft movement of small animals, and the steady sound of the stream. It all felt like a gentle lullaby. Hours passed and Lucas drifted into a deep sleep. Meanwhile, Mrs. Harper did not rest. She sat by her window watching the cabin and occasionally checking her phone for updates. She had reported the intruder, and now she waited for authorities to respond. In her mind, she was sure something unusual was happening. To her, the forest could hide many dangers, and she wanted to protect her neighborhood at any cost. She did not realize that her concern was completely unnecessary. The next morning, Lucas woke up early to see the sunrise. The sky was painted in shades of orange and pink, and the forest seemed to glow in the soft morning light. He stepped onto the porch with a cup of tea, stretching and breathing in the fresh air. It was exactly how he had imagined it. Peaceful, calm, and beautiful. He planned to explore the surrounding area, take photos, and maybe go for a short hike along the stream. Life felt simple, and that simplicity made him happy. Later, he decided to clean a little and organize his cabin. He moved books onto the shelf, arranged his blankets neatly, and even put a few decorative items he had brought from town. He wanted the cabin to feel like home, and every small detail mattered to him. While doing this, he did not notice the sound of a car slowly approaching from the road. Mrs. Harper had left her house, determined to check on the cabin herself. She drove carefully, peeking out from behind trees and bushes. Her curiosity was strong, and she wanted to see who the intruder really was. When she arrived near the cabin, she stopped the car. She could see Lucas moving around inside. Her eyes widened. He looked perfectly ordinary. There was nothing unusual about him, yet she felt nervous. She stepped out of her car, clutching her phone, ready to call for backup if needed. Lucas, however, was still inside, humming softly as he arranged his things. The sun shone through the windows, making him look peaceful and happy, completely unaware of the scene unfolding outside. Mrs. Harper cleared her throat loudly, trying to get his attention. Lucas looked up, surprised. He walked to the window and saw a woman standing by a car, staring at him with a serious expression. "Can I help you?" Lucas asked politely. I just need to make sure everything is fine here," she said, her voice firm. "There was a report about someone in this cabin last night." Lucas smiled, feeling calm. "That someone was me. This is my cabin. I bought it recently, and I just wanted to spend the weekend here." Mrs. Harper's eyes widened further. She had assumed he was someone suspicious, but now she realized she had made a mistake. Lucas was calm, polite, and friendly, completely unlike what she had imagined. She felt a mix of surprise and embarrassment. Lucas stepped outside and introduced himself properly. He explained how he had worked hard to buy the cabin and how excited he was to finally stay there. Mrs. Harper listened, her expression slowly changing from suspicion to understanding. She had expected trouble, but instead she found a kind and ordinary man who just wanted peace and quiet. By the end of the morning, Mrs. Harper apologized for the misunderstanding. Lucas accepted it with a smile. The tension dissolved, replaced by an unusual friendship. She promised to be more careful before jumping to conclusions, and Lucas promised to wave whenever she passed by in her car. Lucas went back into his cabin, feeling happy and relieved. The woods, the stream, and the quiet cabin were all his now. He could finally enjoy the life he had worked so hard to achieve. The incident with Mrs. Harper became a funny story he would tell his friends later, a reminder of how sometimes people worry too much before knowing the truth. The weekend continued with peace and happiness. Lucas explored the forest, listened to the sounds of nature, and enjoyed the comfort of his small cabin. He felt free, confident, and proud. The woods were his sanctuary, and no misunderstanding could take away the joy of this perfect place. Lucas woke up to the gentle sound of birds chirping and the sun streaming through the cabin window. The previous day's excitement about his new cabin still made him smile. He poured himself a cup of coffee and stepped onto the porch, letting the morning air fill his lungs. The forest seemed alive yet calm. Everything was perfect, and for the first time in a long while, Lucas felt completely at peace. Just as he was about to sit down with his coffee, he noticed a car slowly approaching on the narrow road. It was the same car he had seen yesterday, the one belonging to Mrs. Harper, the strict HOA woman who had called the authorities. She waved awkwardly as she drove past the cabin, her expression somewhere between nervous and curious. Lucas waved back politely, deciding to let her go without stopping the moment. He had just finished his breakfast when his phone buzzed. It was a call from the local authorities. Lucas frowned slightly, wondering why they were calling him. He answered politely. "Hello, is this Lucas?" The officer asked. "Yes, speaking." "How can I help you?" Lucas replied. "This is Officer Miller from the local precinct. We received a call last night about a possible intruder in your area. We just wanted to make sure everything is okay," the officer said. Lucas laughed softly, a mixture of relief and amusement. "That would be me. I'm staying at my cabin for the weekend. I recently bought it, and I was sleeping there last night." "There's no intruder," he explained. There was a brief pause on the line, and then Officer Miller chuckled. "Ah, I see. Well, thank you for letting us know. We just wanted to make sure the neighborhood was safe. Have a good day." Lucas hung up the phone and shook his head, smiling. The situation was both funny and a little frustrating. He knew Mrs. Harper had been overly cautious, but he also understood that she only wanted to protect her neighborhood. Still, he thought, a little patience could have prevented the entire misunderstanding. Deciding to enjoy the day, Lucas packed a small bag and headed out for a hike in the forest. The path was narrow but well-trodden, leading to a small clearing near the stream. He loved the way the sunlight filtered through the trees, creating patterns on the ground. Birds flew overhead, and he could hear the distant rustle of leaves as small animals moved through the underbrush. The forest was peaceful, almost magical. Halfway through his hike, Lucas spotted a family of deer grazing near the stream. He stopped to watch them quietly, careful not to disturb their calm. The deer looked up, then continued eating, trusting the forest as their safe home. Lucas felt a deep connection to the natural world around him. This cabin was not just a place to sleep. It was a doorway to peace and simplicity, far from the chaos of town life. Meanwhile, back near the cabin, Mrs. Harper was preparing to visit again. After yesterday's incident, she had been thinking about Lucas constantly. She wanted to make sure he was really who he said he was. Her curiosity had grown into something she could not ignore. Driving slowly through the forest road, she rehearsed what she would say, determined to verify the situation herself. When Lucas returned from his hike, the cabin looked just as welcoming as before. He set down his bag and went to open the door when he noticed Mrs. Harper approaching on foot. Her face was stern, but there was a hint of curiosity behind her eyes. Lucas straightened up and greeted her politely. "Good morning, Mrs. Harper," he said calmly. "Morning, Lucas," she replied. "I hope you don't mind me stopping by. I wanted to check on the cabin, and on you." Lucas smiled politely. "Not at all. I understand your concern. This is my cabin and I'm enjoying it peacefully. Please come in for a cup of tea." Mrs. Harper hesitated for a moment but then nodded. The two of them walked inside the cabin. Lucas prepared a small tray with 2 cups of tea and offered one to her. She accepted, still cautious but a little more relaxed. As they sat near the window, Lucas shared his story. He told her about how he had worked for years to save enough money to buy the cabin, how he had dreamed about having a peaceful retreat in the woods, and how happy he was to finally be there. Mrs. Harper listened carefully, her expression softening. "You've worked very hard for this," she said after a pause. "I admit I jumped to conclusions. I didn't know someone like you would live here peacefully." Lucas laughed lightly. "I understand. You were only doing your job, making sure the neighborhood was safe. I appreciate that." Mrs. Harper smiled, feeling a little embarrassed about the misunderstanding. She had expected trouble, but instead she found someone kind and polite who cared deeply about his cabin and the forest around it. The tension that had existed yesterday seemed to dissolve in the warm morning sunlight. After a while, they decided to step outside. Lucas offered to show her the surrounding area, thinking it might help her understand the forest better. They walked along the stream, where water flowed gently over smooth stones. Lucas pointed out the birds and small animals that lived in the forest, explaining how important it was to respect their space. Mrs. Harper began to relax. She had always been strict, following the rules and keeping watch over the neighborhood. But seeing Lucas's calm and respectful attitude made her think differently. Perhaps not every new neighbor was a threat. Perhaps sometimes people simply needed their own space to be happy. As they walked back to the cabin, Lucas shared a small secret. "I've always loved the idea of living in a place where I can hear nature without the noise of the town. This cabin gives me that. I hope one day the forest will feel like home to others too, but for now it's just for me." Mrs. Harper nodded thoughtfully. "I can understand that. I think I was too quick to judge. You've reminded me that sometimes patience is better than suspicion." Later in the afternoon, Lucas went inside to make some lunch while Mrs. Harper waited outside on the porch, enjoying the view. She watched the sun play through the trees, and she felt a strange sense of calm herself. For the first time, she began to appreciate the forest, not as a place to monitor, but as a beautiful home for someone who cared deeply for it. After lunch, Lucas suggested a small tour of the cabin. He showed her the living room, the cozy bedroom, and the little kitchen. Mrs. Harper looked around, surprised at how simple yet welcoming everything was. She realized that Lucas's life here was not only peaceful, but also meaningful. Every item in the cabin had a purpose, and every corner reflected his care and dedication. As the sun began to set, they returned to the porch. The sky turned orange and pink, reflecting in the calm waters of the stream. Lucas offered Mrs. Harper a cup of tea once more. They sat in comfortable silence, listening to the sounds of the forest. For the first time, the strict HOA rules seemed less important. What mattered was trust, understanding, and respect for the space around them. Mrs. Harper finally spoke, her voice softer than before. "Lucas, I want to apologize again for yesterday. I should have waited and observed before calling for help. You've shown me a different way to see things." Lucas smiled warmly. "No problem. I understand your concern. Maybe next time just come and say hello first." Mrs. Harper laughed gently. "I think I can do that." By the end of the day, both of them had learned something valuable. Lucas had found not only peace in his cabin, but also a new neighbor who could see him as a person rather than a potential threat. Mrs. Harper had learned to look beyond suspicion and understand that sometimes things are not as they seem. The evening was quiet and magical. Lucas watched the stars appear one by one, reflecting on how small misunderstandings could sometimes lead to meaningful connections. He felt proud of his cabin, happy to have found peace, and grateful for the lessons learned. Meanwhile, Mrs. Harper returned to her home, her mind filled with thoughts about the forest, Lucas, and the importance of understanding before judging. The weekend was far from over, and Lucas knew more adventures and surprises awaited him in the woods. But for now, the cabin felt safe, welcoming, and truly his own. He went to bed that night with a smile, ready for whatever the forest would bring next. The next morning, Lucas woke up to the soft light of the sun spilling through the cabin window. The air was fresh, carrying the faint scent of pine trees and the stream nearby. He stretched, feeling refreshed and ready for another day in his little piece of paradise. Yesterday's events with Mrs. Harper were still fresh in his mind, and he smiled at the thought. Despite the misunderstanding, he had gained a new neighbor, someone who now saw him in a different light. After a simple breakfast, Lucas decided to explore deeper into the forest. He wanted to map out the small trails, discover hidden spots, and learn more about the area around his cabin. With a small backpack containing water, snacks, and a notebook, he stepped onto the path behind the cabin. The forest was alive with sound. Birds chirped from the trees, squirrels ran playfully along the branches, and the distant babble of the stream created a soothing rhythm. Lucas loved every moment of it. As he walked, he noticed some old wooden signs partially hidden among the trees. They marked trails that had once been used by hikers and local explorers. Lucas realized that with a little effort, he could restore these trails and make them accessible again. It was an exciting thought. He imagined spending weekends clearing the paths, adding small signs, and making the forest more inviting, not just for himself, but for anyone who wanted to experience its beauty. Halfway along the main trail, Lucas heard a faint rustling sound behind him. He turned around slowly, expecting perhaps a small animal. To his surprise, he saw a young boy about 10 years old looking nervous. The boy's clothes were slightly dirty, and he held a small backpack close to his chest. "Hello," Lucas said gently. "Are you lost?" The boy nodded timidly. "I was walking with my family, and I think I wandered off," he admitted. His voice was quiet, but Lucas could hear the worry in it. "Don't worry," Lucas said reassuringly. "You're safe now. Let's get you back to your family." He took the boy's hand and led him back to the main road, keeping an eye out for any familiar landmarks. When they reached a clearing near the road, Lucas saw a small group of people searching anxiously. The boy's parents ran toward him, relief washing over their faces. "Thank you so much," the father said, grasping Lucas's hand. "We didn't know where he went. You saved him." Lucas smiled, feeling a sense of satisfaction. "It was no trouble at all. I'm just glad he's safe." The family thanked him again and left, waving as they disappeared down the road. Lucas watched them go, feeling happy that he had been in the right place at the right time. It reminded him that living in the forest could sometimes be unpredictable, and one needed to be prepared for surprises. Returning to the cabin, Lucas decided to focus on a small project he had been thinking about. The stream near the cabin had a few fallen branches and small rocks that made walking difficult. He wanted to clear a small path so that he could enjoy the water more safely. While working, he heard another familiar sound, the crunch of gravel under tires. Mrs. Harper had arrived again, driving her small car slowly down the path. "Good morning." "Lucas," she called out as she stepped out. "Good morning, Mrs. Harper," Lucas replied. "Come to see the forest again?" "Yes," she said, smiling. "I thought I would check on you and see what you're doing today." Lucas gestured toward the stream. "I'm clearing a path along the water. Would you like to see it?" Mrs. Harper nodded, and together they walked to the stream. Lucas explained how he planned to remove obstacles and place small wooden steps to make it easier to navigate. Mrs. Harper watched carefully, impressed with his dedication. "You really care about this place," she said. "I can see why you love it so much," Lucas nodded. "It's peaceful here. I like to feel connected to the forest, to the water, and to the animals around. It makes me feel alive." Mrs. Harper smiled, understanding more with each word. She realized that her neighborhood, often filled with rules and expectations, could also be a place where people found joy and purpose. Lucas's cabin was not just a home. It was a place that inspired respect and care for nature. Later in the afternoon, while Lucas worked on clearing another small section of the trail, he noticed something unusual. A few footprints in the soft soil led away from the stream into the deeper forest. They looked too large to be from a small animal, but they were not threatening either. Curious, he followed them cautiously. The footprints led to a small clearing he had never seen before. In the center of the clearing was a large tree with a hollow at its base. Inside, he could see a small bundle of what appeared to be supplies. Lucas approached slowly, careful not to disturb anything. He realized that someone might be camping here without permission, or that a hiker had left supplies behind. Either way, it was important to handle the situation carefully. He decided to investigate but keep a safe distance. As he examined the hollow, he heard a faint voice. "Hello, is someone there?" Lucas froze for a moment, then stepped forward. A young girl, probably around 12, peeked out from behind the tree. She looked scared but curious. "Hi," Lucas said gently. "I'm Lucas, are you okay?" The girl nodded slowly. I didn't mean to cause trouble. I was exploring and I got stuck here. I didn't know how to get back." Lucas smiled reassuringly. "It's all right. You're safe now. Let me help you." He guided the girl carefully back toward the main trail, making sure she felt comfortable. As they walked, she explained that she and her friends had wandered into the forest while camping nearby. They had gotten lost and were too afraid to call for help. Lucas listened patiently, offering encouragement and calm words. When they reached the cabin, Mrs. Harper was there again, tending to a small garden patch near the porch. She looked up and saw Lucas guiding the girl safely back. Relief and admiration crossed her face. "Thank you, Lucas," she said, as the girl's parents arrived shortly after. The family had been searching anxiously. "You've done a great job helping them." Lucas smiled modestly. "It's no problem. The forest can be tricky. It's important to look out for each other." The parents thanked him profusely and took their daughter inside. Lucas felt a warm satisfaction knowing that he had helped someone in need. It reminded him that living close to nature came with responsibility and opportunity. It also reminded him of why he loved the cabin so much. It was not just a place for rest, but also a place to connect with others, to help when needed, and to create small but meaningful memories. That evening, Lucas sat on his porch, watching the sunset paint the sky with brilliant colors. Mrs. Harper joined him, carrying a small tray of fresh tea and biscuits. "I've seen a different side of life here," she said quietly. "I always thought the forest was dangerous and that we had to watch everything carefully. But now I see it's full of beauty, learning, and sometimes little surprises." Lucas nodded. "That's true. The forest teaches patience, respect, and care. It reminds us that life is about observing, listening, and helping where we can." As the night approached, they both sat quietly, sipping tea and enjoying the calm. The forest seemed to embrace them, peaceful yet full of life. Lucas knew that the next days could bring more surprises, challenges, and perhaps even adventures. But he felt ready. His cabin was not just a place to sleep. It was a place to live, grow, and connect. The stars appeared one by one, twinkling brightly above the forest canopy. Lucas leaned back in his chair, reflecting on the day's events. From helping a lost child to guiding the young girl safely, he had realized how living close to nature created opportunities to make a positive impact. Mrs. Harper, who had once been suspicious, now smiled at the wonders of the forest and the people who cherished it. For Lucas, the cabin was becoming more than a dream. It was a sanctuary, a place to be himself, to help others, and to enjoy the beauty of life. The forest had challenges, but it also had rewards, and Lucas was ready for both. The next morning, Lucas woke to the gentle sounds of the forest. Birds sang from the tall trees, and the sunlight painted golden patterns on the wooden floor of his cabin. He stretched, feeling refreshed and ready for a new day. The previous days had been full of surprises, lost children, unexpected visitors, and even new friendships. Lucas had learned that life in the forest was unpredictable, but it was also full of joy, lessons, and opportunities to help others. After breakfast, Lucas decided to tidy the cabin and prepare for the weekend. He wanted everything to feel welcoming, neat, and comfortable. As he polished the wooden table and arranged the books on the shelf, he reflected on how much had changed since he first arrived. The cabin was no longer just a dream. It had become a sanctuary, a place where he could think, rest, and connect with the world around him. While working, he noticed Mrs. Harper walking toward the cabin. She looked calm but also determined, carrying a small notebook in her hand. Lucas waved politely and walked toward her. "Good morning, Mrs. Harper," he said. "Would you like some tea?" She smiled slightly. "Good morning, Lucas. I actually came to talk to you. I have been thinking a lot about everything that happened these past few days." Lucas nodded, curious. "I am listening." Mrs. Harper took a deep breath. "When I first saw you at the cabin, I assumed you were just another visitor or a stranger. I called the authorities because I thought someone was intruding in the neighborhood. But after observing you, seeing how you interact with the forest, helping the lost children, and caring for your cabin, I realized I was wrong. There is more to you than I understood at first." Lucas smiled gently. "I appreciate that. The forest is peaceful, and I only want to enjoy it while respecting its rules and the people around it." Mrs. Harper looked thoughtful. "I want to know more about you. Who are you really? You are different from anyone I expected. You seem calm, responsible, and yet adventurous. The way you handle situations, the way you connect with people, and the way you care for nature. It is rare to see someone like this." Lucas chuckled softly. "I suppose I am just someone who has worked hard and wanted a place to find peace. I have always believed that patience, understanding, and kindness are important, whether in a neighborhood or in the forest. Mrs. Harper nodded slowly, her expression changing from curiosity to surprise. I heard you were successful in town, but I never realized you were so accomplished. You have built a life that is both impressive and humble. You could live anywhere, yet you chose this cabin in the forest. That choice, it says a lot about your character. Lucas listened, feeling a little shy at the praise. I guess I wanted something different. I wanted a place where I could slow down, appreciate life, and help when needed. That is why the forest feels like home to me. Mrs. Harper paused, then spoke with a mix of awe and respect. I admit, I never expected someone like you to live here. I thought the new cabin meant someone careless or troublesome. I was completely wrong. And now I realize that my assumptions were unfair. Lucas nodded politely. It's understandable. People often judge without knowing the full story. I am glad you understand now. Just then, a soft rustling came from the trees near the cabin. Both of them turned to see a small family of deer stepping cautiously into the clearing. Lucas smiled, watching them move gracefully through the forest. The sight reminded both of them of the beauty and harmony that existed in the woods. Mrs. Harper spoke again, her voice quieter this time. Lucas, the more I see, the more I realize that the forest suits you. You are not just living here. You are protecting, respecting, and adding life to this place. I misjudged you, but now I see the truth. Lucas felt a warm sense of satisfaction. Thank you. That means a lot. I have worked hard to create a balance between my life and the forest. It feels good to know that someone understands that effort. The day continued with simple joys. Lucas and Mrs. Harper walked along the small stream, checking the trail he had cleared earlier. They talked about the animals, the trees, and the plans he had to maintain the forest paths. Mrs. Harper asked questions, and Lucas explained patiently. She listened carefully, realizing how much thought, effort, and care Lucas put into even the smallest details. As the afternoon approached, Lucas decided to show her a special place he had discovered a few days ago. It was a small hill overlooking the forest and the stream where the sunlight made the water sparkle like diamonds. The view was breathtaking, and Mrs. Harper gasped softly when she saw it. This is amazing, she said. I never knew this part of the forest existed. It feels peaceful, like a hidden world. Lucas smiled. It's one of my favorite spots. Whenever I feel stressed or tired, I come here to think and breathe. The forest has a way of calming the mind and lifting the spirit. Mrs. Harper nodded, her eyes thoughtful. I can see why you chose this cabin. It's not just about living somewhere quiet. It's about finding balance and harmony. I understand now. As the sun began to set, Lucas prepared a small campfire outside the cabin. The warm glow illuminated the porch and the surrounding trees. Mrs. Harper joined him, bringing a small tray of tea and fresh fruit. They sat together, enjoying the calm, the warmth of the fire, and the quiet beauty of the forest. You know, Mrs. Harper said, I am glad I met you. I have learned more about patience, understanding, and respect in these past days than I ever expected. I see now that appearances can be deceiving. It is the heart and the actions that matter. Lucas nodded. I couldn't agree more. The forest teaches lessons every day, and living here has helped me grow. I think we both learned something important. Just then, a car slowly drove down the road. It was Officer Miller and a few colleagues coming to check in on the neighborhood after the recent reports. Lucas greeted them warmly and invited them to sit by the fire. He explained everything, the lost children, the hikers, and the peaceful life he had built in the forest. The officers listened, nodding in understanding. Lucas, it is clear that you are responsible and careful, Officer Miller said. We were worried at first, but now we see that you are making a positive difference in this area. Thank you for being a good neighbor. Mrs. Harper smiled, feeling proud. I was wrong to judge you quickly. You have proven yourself through your actions, and I am grateful to see it firsthand. Lucas smiled politely. Thank you. I only want to live peacefully and contribute positively to the community." As the night deepened, the fire crackled softly, and the stars appeared above the forest canopy. Lucas, Mrs. Harper, and the officers sat quietly, watching the sky and listening to the soft sounds of the forest. It was a moment of connection, understanding, and harmony. Before leaving, Mrs. Harper spoke again, her tone warm and sincere. "Lucas, I want you to know that I respect you greatly. Not many people would choose a life like yours, and not many could handle it with such calm and kindness. I am glad you are part of this community." Lucas felt a deep sense of fulfillment. "Thank you, that means a lot. I hope that the forest and the cabin can continue to be a place of peace and learning for everyone who visits responsibly." When the visitors left, Lucas sat quietly by the fire. The day had been full of revelations, respect, and understanding. Mrs. Harper had seen who he really was, and the authorities now trusted him completely. The forest, once only a dream, had become a place where life, kindness, and harmony coexisted beautifully. Lucas reflected on the events of the past days. From the misunderstanding with Mrs. Harper to helping the lost children, guiding hikers, and sharing the forest with others, he realized how much one person could impact their surroundings positively. Living in the forest was not just about escaping the city, it was about responsibility, care, and connection. As he finally went to bed, the stars twinkling through his window, Lucas felt peaceful. The cabin was more than a home. It was a place of learning, understanding, and growth. He had faced challenges, cleared misunderstandings, and shown that kindness and respect could overcome suspicion and fear. The forest outside remained quiet, but full of life, as if acknowledging the harmony that had been created. Lucas closed, his eyes feeling grateful for the journey, the lessons, and the friendships he had found. Life at the cabin had proven to be everything he had hoped for and more, and he knew that no matter what challenges came next, he was ready to face them with patience, calm, and respect for the world around him.